If I could ask Jo Surma to address the committee, please.
Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I'm number 2 on the objections, and I speak on behalf of myself as a long-term Cheltenham resident, and I'm also the co-coordinator of the 3 Counties branch of the Women's Right Network. So I will try and keep it brief, I promise. But first and foremost, my main objection is that it's, as been mentioned, outside of the designated permitted area. So the council itself has said that we're a relatively small urban borough, it's predominantly residential, and that the authority has resolved it's inappropriate to licence SEVs in or in the vicinity of, amongst others, residential areas. And it is the authority's policy, therefore, that there is no locality outside of the designated permitted area in which it would be appropriate to licence an SEV. Accordingly, the appropriate number of SEVs for outside of the designated permitting area is nil. So while the licence was granted in February 2023, despite being outside the designated permitted area, I do question if it would have been granted if the November dates had been included in the initial application. It does feel to me personally like an attempt to move towards a sexual entertainment venue being opened during every single Cheltenham race meet, not just the march, which could potentially move it then to a permanent fixture. It may sound like objection, but looking at the Eroticats website, it does quote that they will be open for the Open, the International Festival Trial Day, the April meeting and New Year's Day racing. So I do feel like it's a legitimate concern. For those who aren't racegoers, this would cover the showcase in October, the Open in November, the International December, Festival Trial Day January, and April, which obviously is the race week, and then New Year's Day, self-explanatory. I'm not sure how further operational days of an SEV would affect Cheltenham's purple flag status, of which we are obviously all proud to have, especially given that they did praise the Cheltenham's Guardians scheme, who have said that they were overrun during March race meeting, with people needing their support in the evenings. I could talk extensively about the risks posed to women and girls due to the behaviour seen in town during the March race week, but I appreciate that that would class possibly as a moral objection rather than thinking of it as safeguarding issues. But I will say I reached out to our local MP, Alex Chalk, for his opinion on this licence, and he did come back to me with a very supportive email, which he has said that he is happy for me to read. So, with that being said, he said that he has been very clear that I strongly oppose the granting of SEV licences in Cheltenham and have done so consistently since I became MP. They harm local businesses, attract antisocial behaviour and can create an intimidating atmosphere. In my view, the time has come to stop such venues opening in Cheltenham altogether. This is purely his words, I haven't altered it in any way. So some councillors have claimed that their hands are tied when it comes to SEV licences, and the moral objections are not a basis for rejection. I'm afraid that this is misleading, and it is not the case that they can do nothing, and I have written to the Chair of Cheltenham Borough Council's Licensing Committee to set out the powers the Council has to take action if it wants to. In a letter responding to me, he dismissed those with concerns regarding SEVs as a minority with moral objections. I don't share that assessment. It is patronising and rather misunderstands the issue. I've been contacted by a number of constituents whose concerns are not moral, as they've been at pains to point out, but focused instead on the risk of harassment, the safety of women, and the impact on business. He says, turning to the application I mentioned specifically, I understand it is a variation from an existing licence, and the original licence was from February 23 to February 24, with permitted operating days during the March race week. However, the applicants are requesting a variation to include 2 nights in November to correspond with the November race meet. One thing that is most striking in the documentation is that it is clear that the existing licence was permitted even though outside of the Council's own designated permitted area for events such as this. The documents say, it must be noted that this venue is situated out of that area, but that the authority decided to grant the original application, and it will therefore be for the committee to determine whether they believe that the increase in the number of days for this venue is relevant in the context of that decision. As the venue is outside of the permitted area, it seems to me there are strong grounds to object to an extension in the number of permitted operational days. Be that as it may, assuming you're speaking at the committee yourself, I'd be happy with you referencing my general objection to SEV licences, which is a matter of record, and then wishes me good luck with this hearing.
Thank you.
So, in summary, the request, I feel, shouldn't have standing in the first place, as the venue is outside of the designated planning area, and just because it has happened once doesn't mean it should happen again. That is a very slippery slope argument in all aspects of life. And I hope that the Council will stand with me, a local mother, the 3 Counties Women's Rights Network group, and also, therefore, Alex Chalk, the Secretary of State for Justice, in opposing this. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the licensing officer to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to comment just that obviously the committee has to be very careful when it's considering representations. This is a proper legal process and we have to ensure a fair hearing. The committee can obviously consider those comments in respect of the MP where they're related to your representation. So if they amplify and clarify the points that you've already made, any new information in there, I would ask the committee to disregard completely. Okay, if the MP wished to make a representation, he could have done that in his own right and he could have attended this evening. What he can't do is once that objection period is closed, put his own representation into the mix outside of the time limit. Okay, no one else can do that and an MP certainly can't. So I just wanted to flag that up. So it's just out of fairness, I just wanted to make it clear that obviously the members can consider the elements of that that are linked to your representation, where they amplify and clarify that, but beyond that, where he's gone beyond that, they have to disregard that.
So I have written to the MP. He has, as to the best of my knowledge, although objections are anonymous, to the best of my knowledge in the entire time that I have been here, we have never had an objection on parliamentary paper from the MP. He has never formally objected, despite the fact that he undoubtedly could. He is Secretary of State for Justice, and he is better placed to change this legislation than we are.